G'day, Anders Sorman-Nilsson here from the streets of Hanoi. Today I've been speaking at a HP print supplies conference. The three trends that I spoke about, or the three disruptions that I spoke about in my keynote, waves of change, as they pertain to the APJ region or Asia Pacific, including Japan, were the following. Firstly, I spoke about the idea that everything that can be digitized effectively will be digitized. Secondly, I spoke of the idea that the consumer across APJ is increasingly mobilizing, or in other words, taking their most important life matters into their own hands, literally. And thirdly, the idea that yes, even though we might be digitizing and mobilizing, yes, our minds or our rational minds might increasingly have become digitized, but our hearts are still very much firmly analog. And this is important, particularly if you are a marketer, if you're a printer, if you're a print communication center. This idea of how you innovate at the convergence of the analog and the digital will be key to your future strategy. When it comes to the fact that everything is now digitizing, what does this actually mean for business today? Well, it means things like new business models, new service models. It means that increasingly we're using and accessing information via phablets, tablets, and that the formats of those might be largely different. So where do we see this? Well, for example, think about how we used to listen to music. We used to have a physical product that would carry the information that was music. Same with movies. Nowadays, music is not a product anymore as such. It's largely a service. We went from CDs and vinyls and tape cassettes, of course, into those being digitized. We could access them via MP3 downloads, etc. But now we've moved even beyond the download into formats like Spotify, for example, where music is largely a service. Products under digitized conditions are increasingly digitizing and becoming services, and really innovative companies like the likes of Spotify or Netflix are getting that when a product has moved from something physical to something largely digitized, there is a service offering to be had. And the key thing about that is that increasingly that service can be incredibly curated, incredibly personalized, and nowadays as consumers we are choosing to rent access to music rather than owning it per se. The other service model that sort of pops out of digitization is the fact that the likes of BMW today are using things like predictive maintenance or predictive analytics, using massive amounts of data being broadcast from the boxes that they sell, i.e. their BMWs, that are inputting information back into BMW's central hub, so that BMW can then communicate with us as consumers saying, hey, it looks like your wheels are a little bit out of alignment. It looks like you might not be driving in the most fuel efficient manner. And they realize that a car is really there beyond the status, of course, to get us from point A to point B. Just like communications and print gets us from point A to point B in terms of communications. For BMW, this means that they're not just selling boxes, but they're now selling a service that gets us even closer and even more loyal to the brand that is BMW. So these were some of the ideas around digitization. The second point we spoke about today was the fact that we're all, as consumers, mobilizing. What I covered here was the fact that now through devices like Nike Plus Fuel Band, Fitbit, wearable technology, we're constantly monitoring our blood, sweat and tears. Through the likes of mint.com, we can now access in real time our investment properties, our remaining mortgage balance, our credit card spend, and getting a holistic real-time overview over our financial health any moment in time. Increasingly what we are doing here is we're taking life matters into our own hands, and the consumer as a result is more informed about your brand and the brands around you. The question really around all of this is whether you as a brand are offering mobile, optimized and relevant thought-leading content that is optimized across a multitude of screens, because many of us fail to do this. We might have a great website and it may not properly display via the various devices that people now access the information through. The other thing is that 4 years ago, in January 2010, the 27th of January 2010, Steve Jobs launched the iPad. It's only 4 years ago if you're listening to this in 2014. Now what that device used to do was that it used to be really great for consuming content. But now we as consumers, and the technology, whether it's an iPad or a tablet or a phablet, has moved us and coached us through a process where now we are choosing to also create content. It might be scribbling digitally on the napkin that is your tablet to maybe jot down some ideas. It might that we're seeking to 3D print from our tablet once we've created a new idea for a really cool new product. It might be things like creating a PowerPoint presentation or a keynote presentation using your tablet. Now we're not just consuming media, but we're creating media via our tablets. And what this means is that there is an opportunity for smart printers, smart suppliers to ensure that they play at the intersection between the analog and the digital. The final third point that I spoke about here in Hanoi is the fact that yes, digital minds, but enduringly we have analog hearts. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, the digital world can be ephemeral. It can be a moment in time. Now, if I asked you if you remembered your first digital MP3 download, you'd probably say, probably not. But if you thought about the first vinyl or the first tape cassette you ever got given or bought, likelihood is you'll probably remember it, and you might even remember some of the songs on it. I remember running around an entire summer in 1986 in Sweden singing It's the Final Countdown by Europe, and I didn't speak a word of English at the time, so it was highly annoying for my parents. But digital can be ephemeral. In fact, The Atlantic magazine released an article a few years ago with a title, great title I think, whether Google is making us stupid. And in an environment like APJ, Asia Pacific and Japan, where education is so important, the question is, when we are distracted by digital distraction from another distraction, do we truly learn in a deep and meaningful way? Or is there something about print and the printed medium that has a deep resonance with us as human beings? Sometimes when everybody else zigs, it's important to zag and do the opposite. We recently took a view on the Swedish postal market or snail mail. So in Christmas time, when nobody really in Sweden sends handwritten Christmas cards anymore, we decided that while the trend in terms of print was down, we decided to do the opposite, to engage the hearts and the minds of our customers by sending them a Christmas special. We had a 300% return on investment in terms of this particular strategy. It was a snail mail strategy. This makes me believe that when we think deeply and we take a deliberate point of view on analog versus digital media, maybe start combining both of them, that's when we're truly successful. That's when we're truly adaptive. Because when we think about all of this digital disruption, we need to remember that it's only really disruptive if you as a business owner are not adaptive. But if we adapt with digital disruption and we combine the best of the old school and the new school, there is a chance we will be successful in the future as well. One thing to check out online after you've seen this video is to check out the very Digilog catalog by IKEA. I had the pleasure of working with some of IKEA's leaders a few weeks ago in Lisbon, Portugal, and the really cool thing about that experience was that they told me that, hey Anders, we could never get rid of our IKEA catalog. People complain and call us up if it comes a couple of days late. So they had to think deeply about how do we keep this medium relevant for the future that's increasingly digitized, and where a younger generation of IKEA consumer might just want a little bit more of 414 real estate type information as well. So what they did is that they digitally amplified and augmented reality, the physical reality of the IKEA catalog. So now when we get in our snail mail, some of the pages are digitally amplified, meaning you can pop down the page or the catalog in your living room, and to scale, to 3D, what we'll see pop alive when we view that piece of information through our screens, through our phablets and tablets and mobile phones, is that the items will jump alive. So Billy the bookcase all of a sudden will come alive in your living room. You can change the color, you can change the sizing, etc. And you can see your family around them and take screenshots of how they would look like if you went into the bricks and mortar store, or even if you went online shopping for those items from IKEA later on. This is turning a very analog catalog into something that's truly digilog, in terms of a catalog that wins both the digital minds but also the analog hearts of tomorrow's customers. This, whether you're in print or whether you're in communications at large, is something you need to remember for the future.